Good evening, everybody. Welcome to ProMed's webinar this Thursday, the 22nd of October. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the emergency services command roles at incidents. You can see we've still got a few people joining. So welcome to everybody who's joining. Thank you all for sharing your names, locations, and what roles you all have. Pleased to see we've got some students from across the UK joining us. These webinars are really good for your professional development if you are already qualified, but they also add some extra information from the real life operational side that you don't necessarily get from any courses that you're already doing. So as I said, my name is Matt. I'm the Managing Director of ProMed. I'm a qualified teacher, completed my MIMS provider training twice over, do regular CPD and all that. Clinically, I am FREC 4 and I also have a PhD honours in biomedical sciences. And I've been working in events and the planning, including the crowd safety, security, event safety, medical side since 2006. So I've worked with a lot of safety advisory groups and multi-agency groups in that arena. I've worked in control rooms with people from all of the different sectors, the police, the fire, even the Coastguard in some of the events that I've been involved in. So I'm speaking a lot from personal experience as well as from the literature. Our slides will be available at some point tomorrow, and the references that I've used will be available to download. So welcome to everybody. I can see a few more people are still joining us. So hello to everybody who's here. I can see we've got a few returning faces. So hello and welcome to you all. Thank you very much for returning. So in addition to providing the free of charge webinars every Thursday at 7 p.m, we do also advertise and arrange for places on a number of QualSafe training courses through our training partners, STC Training Solutions. So if you are interested, please visit our website, promed99.co.uk/training. That will give you the full details and the dates of all of the courses. Our next FREC 3 runs on weekdays, starting on the 18th of January. That runs Monday to Friday. And the next available weekend course, which is over 3 consecutive weekends, 5 days in total, is on the 13th of February. Our FREC 3 courses include the Level 3 award in administering medical gases, so you can administer Entonox as well as oxygen, and we'll provide you with a copy of Ambulance Care Essentials to keep. That's all for £390. If you've already got your FREC 3 and you want to move it up a notch, then our next FREC 4 starts on the 23rd of January. That's over 3 spaced out weekends, giving you the time whilst you're enrolled with us to complete your workbook. We do have some video webinars from STC listed on our website, giving you all of the details that you need to know to get those workbooks completed. If you already have your FREC 4, or if you're a registered healthcare professional and you need to do your immediate life support annually, that's available for £150. It's a one-day course. Our next one is available in, I believe, 3 weeks' time on the 15th of November. That's just one day, and we'll give you the latest Resource Council UK ILS booklet to keep from that. And if you already are FREC 4 and you're working or are contracted or on the bank staff for any CQC registered organisation, we do the 2-day safe administration of life-saving medication courses with all the add-ons, knobs, bells and whistles, and a copy of JR cards to keep, and that's £200. Again, just visit our website if you'd like to book onto any of those. The link is now in the chat. Alice, do apologise if I'm a little bit quiet for you. I'll speak up a little bit louder for you. Alan, no problem. Really pleased to see that you are progressing and developing there. Do catch up on YouTube, of course. And the other thing to add is we are recruiting. We are currently in negotiations with a couple of more clients who are looking to increase the number of staff that we have available to the film and TV industry. So we are therefore recruiting for regular and reliable people all across the UK. We are a living wage employer, so that means we pay £11.75 an hour outside of London and £13.50 an hour inside of London. That looks above the published minimum sort of living wage. That's because the living wage is designed for people who are employed through pay. Because you're not, we add on what we would pay in NI, holiday pay, pension pot, etc. so that after you have made your own legal contributions and set aside some money for your retirement, you're still left with £9.30 or £10.75 per hour. We're also a signatory of the Prompt Payment Code. That means that we will pay all of our suppliers, including our subcontracted bank staff, within 30 days. Most people don't wait any longer than 2 weeks with us, but just be aware it can be up to 30 days, but most people do get paid a lot quicker. And our roles, we're looking for first responders, so anybody who's FREC 3 or higher, or emergency technician, medical technicians, anybody who's FREC 4 or higher. We're also looking for ambulance technicians, so FREC 5, AAP, IHCD or higher, depending on what the client needs. And if you are interested in applying to work for ProMed, please just email apply@promed999.co.uk and one of the team will send you out our application form and let you know what you need to provide. We do have some interview slots available next week. All of our interviews are conducted by Zoom, so you can arrange them to fit yourself. So do get in touch. Private message there. Yes, we'll talk about the CPD certificates at the end of the webinar. So welcome all. We do have a code of conduct for those of you who've not been to our training sessions before. We do have code of conducts for both our physical and our real world training events. And that is we create a space free from bullying, intimidation and harassment, believing that everybody has the right to be treated with dignity, respect and courtesy and not be discriminated against. So whilst we do encourage people to disagree with one another and engage in discussion and learn from one another, we just need to be mindful that everybody shows each other respect. If you do need to report any inappropriate behaviour, just message ProMed admin team privately. They'll look into it. If it's after the webinar, just email us webinars@promed999.co.uk. So tonight we're specifically going to be looking at the 3-tier model of command, and then we're going to look in detail at the police roles, the fire and rescue service roles, the search and rescue roles, and the roles of Her Majesty's Coastguard. So the 3-tier model is probably something that's quite familiar to you all. If you've read Jessup, if you attended our previous webinars, this should be similar, should be very familiar. It is the same 3-tier model that the ambulance service uses. So first of all, we have a gold command. So gold command is strategic and they're located off-site. So they're not getting involved in what's happening at the incident site. They're not looking at the specifics of what's happening. What they're looking at is the overall organizational response and also the business as usual for the organization. So to do that, they're located off-site, typically in a control room, and their role is to set the strategy. They set the overarching objectives, the overarching intentions of the organization. They take into account the policies, the procedures, the legislation that exists, and then they set the kind of policy decisions and give everybody that end goal, and the commanders underneath them work to those strategic aims and objectives. So the commander underneath them will be a silver commander. So silver commanders are what we call tactical commanders, and they'll be located either at or very close to the incident. Ambulance services in some parts of the UK do vary that, but for all of the services and the majority of ambulance services, the silver command should be located at or near the incident. So tactical command is all about setting the objectives for what's happening at the scene. It's setting the tactics. So it's not getting bogged down in the detail of how things are going to be delivered. It's saying what needs to be delivered. So it's listening to those strategic objectives and then turning them into tangible, achievable things that the operational commanders can work to. So, you know, the tactics might be, right, we're going to put 30 people over there to deal with this. The tactics might be, right, we're going to run a vehicle route this way because we're going to set up this area for this because. So they're going to set those deliverable goals that the bronze commanders are then going to operate. And that brings us on to bronze. So your bronze commanders are your operational commanders. They are located within the incident. They will have a role to perform on the incident site usually. And that role is very operational. So they are listening to the tactics and they are then gathering their groups of people and saying, right, this is what we need to do. This is how I want you to do it. I want you to go and do this job. I want you to go and do that job. So they are essentially team leaders with a bit of knob on, basically. They're a bit higher than the team leader, but fundamentally, the people who they're talking to will see them as their team leader, their line manager at that point in time. They are the one giving the directions to the people on the ground. And that's a 3-tier model in a nutshell. If you want to know more about it, and there is a lots more to read, I would strongly recommend the JESIP website, jesip.org.uk. That has plenty of detail on there. Alternatively, if you don't want to visit the website, download the JESIP app onto your phone. I would download the JESIP app onto your phone anyway, because it is very useful if an incident does happen. But it does give you all the information about the 3 command levels, who talks to who, and the general overview of what strategic, tactical, and operational means. So let's now move on to the specifics, the bit that you've all actually came here tonight for. So police have a gold commander, the same as all the other organisations do. However, the police gold commander has an extra role. They are the chair of the Strategic Coordinating Group. Now, the Strategic Coordinating Group, or SCG for short, is the multi-group of gold commanders that decide what they're going to do. They're working together, so in line with the JESIP principles of co-locating, communicating, coordinating, etc. The police gold commander will chair that group. They will be the one who brings everybody into the same room and will ensure that everybody has their say, will take stock of everybody's aims and objectives, and will ensure that everybody is singing off the same hymn sheet and everybody is being represented at those meetings. Police will then have Silver Commander, usually at the scene, and that is the most senior police officer present, usually speaking. And then underneath them, there will be a subset of bronze commanders. Now, depending on the incident type, depending on where the incident's taken place and any further possible threats, depends on what bronze commanders the police would have in place. So if the police are deploying authorised firearms officer, there will be a bronze commander for the firearms team. Usually there will be a separate firearms function within the control room, and they will be feeding into gold separately as well. You will have a bronze commander for public order. Now, that's typical of most incidents, because even if the incident isn't a public order incident, you will tend to find, obviously, the members of the public will congregate, will want to know what's going on. So police will typically have bronze public order at any incident to kind of control that scene, that cordon, and make sure that the public are being managed in a safe, reasonable, and proportionate way. There may be bronze traffic from the police, so particularly if it's a road incident, that person will be overseeing all of the traffic strategy that Silver has asked for. So Silver will make the decisions about how traffic is going to be routed. Bronze traffic will be enacting that tactic, making sure that there are sufficient resources at the right points, making sure that signage goes up, liaising with their traffic contractors or the local authority if necessary. If it is a chemical, a biological, radiological, nuclear, or explosive incident, that's what CBRNE stands for, if you're not aware or you've forgotten. Chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive. So if it's thought that there are any of those agents involved, then there will be a police bronze who is solely looking at that aspect of the incident. And they may work in partnership with, but separately to, a bronze counter-terrorism. So if it's thought in the early stages that the incident is of a terrorist nature, or there may be a terrorist threat in conjunction with the incident, then there will be a bronze counter-terrorism who is considering the likelihood of secondaries, who is considering what may come next, where evacuation points should be. If we're evacuating and displacing people somewhere, is there a terror threat to that new location, and so on. And the important thing with the police is, like a lot of agencies, these commands are role, not rank specific. So it's perfectly possible that a Silver commander might just have one pip on their shoulder because they are an experienced commander. They have done their training. They have dealt with incidents like that before. Somebody else might come down with 2 pips or 3 pips on their shoulder, but they might be given a bronze firearms role because actually they're the firearms commander. That's what they do really well. There is no point in transferring Silver responsibility to somebody else, having a bronze with no experience in that bronze role. Police roles, as I say, like many other services, are very role, not rank specific. So in an incident, it's what tabard you're wearing, not the amount of bird shit on your shoulders. Something that certain other organisations didn't quite get the hang of. But yeah, look at tabards identifying people rather than what's on people's shoulders. So what do the police actually do? What's their role? Why do we have the police in this country? Why do we need the police to turn up to an incident? What are people's thoughts here? Let's throw some ideas in the chat. What do you think the police do in day-to-day life and specifically at incidents? Yep, we're getting some great answers here. So control and order, command the scene, the major incidents, traffic management and public resource command, control crowds, direct the scene, facilitate the response, maintain law and order as well as evidence. These are all absolutely the right things. And mass overtime, hold things for the ambulance service. David's here. Hello, David. Yep, so it's really good that we're all coming up with the correct answers. There's a much more appropriate service that would hold our items for us, by the way, in case you've forgotten, David. So the main role of the police is very clearly to protect life and property. That's what they do day in and day out. They protect life and property. For incidents specifically, they would coordinate the response of other emergency services. We don't just mean the core three. The police will also coordinate the response of mountain rescue, of
this meeting is being recorded,
of other services. Sorry, we just seem to have a little bit of feedback there. Nope, that's better. So they will coordinate the response of all of those kind of services that feed into the overall emergency response. If you phone up 999 and you say you need mountain rescue, you'll be put through to the police control room and the police will then alert mountain rescue, and they do that for a lot of other services. They are kind of the gatekeepers almost. The police also include responsibility for UK territorial waters, and we'll look a little bit more in detail at this when we come to the Coastguard. And they also have responsibility for the UK sector of the North Sea. So any incidents that happen in those areas, so land and also water, will kind of fall in with the overall police. Now, when it comes to stuff on the water, the police will basically control from the land boundary in over, and the Coastguard will control from the land boundary onto water. So an incident that happens coastally within the UK territory doesn't just happen in isolation on the sea, though the effects of that incident, any casualties, will be brought onto land, and also any specialist equipment, any specialist people, resources that need to go to the incident will come from land, and the police will coordinate that staging area. Each service will have its own responsibilities, but the police will set that up and will define areas where people are going to work within. The police also have another really important role to play, which is something that people often think is the job of the ambulance service, but it actually falls within the police, and that's disaster victim identification and the operation of a casualty bureau. So within this, you have a senior investigating officer who is overseeing the entirety of the disaster victim identification process. And that's not just fatalities, but that's any casualties, any survivors. Basically, the victims is anybody who has been negatively affected by the disaster. So they will work with the coroner, they will work with the procurator fiscal, they will work with other statutory leads who have a role to play. So they will liaise quite heavily with the ambulance service because we are the ones processing the casualties from the scene, taking them to the hospital. So there'll be a very close link there. There's Casualty Bureau Manager. So the Casualty Bureau Manager is an off-site role. It is based in the police control room. They are coordinating the activities of everybody answering the phones, and they're also coordinating the influx of information from scene and from hospitals. So they're making sure that all that information is being received, that it's being processed, that it's being reconciled with the inquiries that the Bureau is receiving from relatives or potential relatives of people who may or may not have been caught up in that incident. There's a family liaison coordinator. Now, the family liaison coordinator does have a bit of an unfortunate job. They are overseeing the family liaison officers who will be going and knocking on people's doors and going, you know, I'm really sorry to have to tell you, Timmy is in hospital. He's very seriously injured, but we will take you to hospital right now. They will also oversee ensuring that all fatalities get a door knock from a very empathetic police officer who will explain the circumstances to that family in person. They will also oversee ensuring that once that person's been identified, that the next of kin is identified. So they have a really important role there. There's the scene evidence recovery manager. Now, a scene evidence recovery manager, they are the ones who will say, you know, try to disturb the scene as little as possible while we're ragging casualties out all over the ground and whilst fire are busy digging through all the rubble. The scene evidence recovery manager is the one who kind of stands there, you know, like this, going, oh my God, why are they destroying my scene? At the same time, understanding that, you know, preserving life and recovering people is the most important thing. They will try and ensure that their team photographs things as quickly as possible so that they can preserve as much evidence before it's disturbed, because the nature of an incident is that we will, in our role, have to disturb evidence in order to save lives and extricate casualties. So the police scene evidence recovery manager will try and get some photographs of that, or will make a sketch, or will try and take a quick interview with whoever was at the scene before they forget what the original scene looked like. And the police will also have a mortuary operations coordinator. Now, that does in some ways tie in with what we may have as part of the casualty clearing station. So if you can remember, the casualty clearing station will have a body holding area if we have a number of fatalities arising from that. And then there'll be a temporary mortuary as well, and we may provide a doctor to assist with the certifications. So they will link in with the police mortuary operations coordinator in terms of where is a suitable and safe site. They will, you know, ask for the paperwork from the police. They will sign the tags that the police provide. So that's an area where the police and certainly the medical aspect of healthcare will work quite closely together. So they're the main kind of roles that we need to know about the police. Let's look at the fire and rescue service. Sorry, just excuse me. I'm just going to reject this call.
Good evening. Thank you for calling.
There we go.
David, how can I help?
Just diving all over that for me. So fire and rescue service.
No, I'm still at working.
So if we can just ask in the chat, what roles do the fire and rescue service have? So what would we expect the fire and rescue service to be able to do at an incident? So we've got some really good answers coming through there. So we've got control of structures, extrication of trapped persons, putting out fires, holding stuff for ambulance, water ferries, extinguishing fires, managing hazards, removing people who are trapped, making structures safe, scene safety, permit medical services into the hot zone, steal our equipment and food, remove cats from trees, make the site safe, pet rescue, escort the Salvation Army's tea truck. Absolutely all of those are things that the fire and rescue service will do. So whilst the police, first of all, will have the overall control of the incident, it is typically the fire service who have overall control of safety. So each service will have its own particular safety officer, but where there are hazards that are common to everybody, where there are hazards from the incident or from the scene itself, it will be the fire and rescue service that will take primacy in terms of making those hazards as safe as is reasonably practicable to allow the other services to be able to do their jobs. So just like the police, just like the ambulance service, fire and rescue will have a gold commander. They will again be based off site in their control room or another facility set up, and they will be looking at the fire and rescue response to the incident, making sure that as the incident escalates, appropriate command structures are being sent alongside that. They will also be looking at the business as usual. They will also be making sure that fire cover is maintained across their whole fire sector. Then the next term does have a slight, it depends where you are in the country as to what they prefer to call them. They could be the Fire Silver Commander, or they could be the Incident Commander, or the Fire Incident Commander. There's slight variations across the country there, but it is one and the same thing. It is the silver role of the Fire and Rescue Service. They are then supported by a command support team, which is a bronze level team. I've put them in there separately because this particular function from the fire brigade, and we're going to look at the functions in a moment, is purely there to support silver in discharging the silver roles. Fire silver has a lot of competing priorities, so they have their own command support function, which assists them in that decision making and brings all that information together, collates it, and keeps track of everything. Then you'll have your operational sector commanders. So your operational sector commanders are basically the physical spaces where there is fire and rescue service activity taking place. So they're very, very typical sectorization patterns. So typically your primary area where all your fire vehicles turn up in front of the incident will be sector 1, and it will then work clockwise around the incident. So sector 2, sector 3, sector 4, and so on. Depending on the size of the incident, it may be that it is a single sector, but it would still have an operational sector commander, or it may be a large, factory incident that might have 7, 8, 9, 10 factors. You then could have some internal sectors, so particularly in multi-story or high-rise or multi-occupancy buildings, you would have internal sectors within that. So you have your fire sector, which is where your fire is concentrated or your main hazards are concentrated. You will then have the search sector, which is generally anything above the fire level. And you then have the lobby sector, which is anything below the fire sector. So we all know that heat, smoke, etc. rises. So anything below 1 or 2 floors, depending on service policy, the fire level is termed the lobby level, because up to that point, it is exactly the same as working at the ground in terms of how the fire service would organise their activities. Now, fire have a very predictable sort of uniform. They have very predictable high vis, and that is the fire officer who is wearing white. The fire officer with the white helmet is the silver commander. Any fire officer who is wearing a yellow surcoat, so a yellow high vis with red shoulders, they are a sector, an operational sector commander. They are bronze. And any fire officer that is wearing a red and white checkered tabard, they belong to the command support. So red is fire, white is fire's incident command. So then the fire and rescue service have their functional sectors or their support sectors. So we have similar in the ambulance service, we have bronze officers who do things, but because the way the fire service works, because the fire service always work in units or teams, and we typically just need 1 or 2 people looking after it while we get on with our job, fire have a lot more logistical considerations than we do as the ambulance service. So they have functional sector commanders, which is basically a team leader for a group of people doing the same job. So they will have marshalling. So they will have a functional sector commander for marshalling, and that is basically arranging where the appliances are going to go, arranging where people need to wait, deciding how things are going to flow, basically. They work very much in conjunction with logistics. So logistics is any non-appliance vehicles, it is catering, it is power, radios, it is getting things to and from the site, making sure things happen. Getting things to and from is the main function of functional logistics. There will typically, especially on a large incident or where others are turning to them for advice, there will be a functional sector commander for safety. So they will have other safety officers working with them who will be checking dangerous structures, who will be checking the size of the fire, who will be checking chemical hazards, who will be checking how a car has got its airbags, for example. And they will have that overall lead. They will be the focal point of contact for anybody with any safety questions, They will also be making sure that all of the fire crew on scene are being kept as safe as possible from any hazards. Communications is another functional sector. So fire, typically their control room is more of a simple dispatch. It is more of a answer the phone, ring the fireman, and the fireman goes out in his truck. Fire communications on an incident ground are coordinated at the incident ground level. Everything to do with the incident is dealt with at the incident ground. Contrast that to the police, where the existing police control room will just branch off, and part of the police control room in its normal control room environment will handle the communications for the incident. Fire do it very differently. Fire have their communications brought to them and managed at the incident scene. BA main control. So BA stands for breathing apparatus. So these are the people who are making sure that people wearing breathing apparatus have sufficient air, are brought out in time, reporting any problems. You will have water. Obviously, one of the main roles of fire is to put out fire. One of the main things they use to put out the fire is water. They might also have a functional sector for foam. So if there's flammable liquids involved, there will be a specialist officer who knows the type of foam, who knows the properties of that foam, the concentration needs to be at, how best to apply it, and they'll be overseeing the delivery of that foam or the mixing of that foam at the appliance level. We will quite often hook in with a functional sector commander for decontamination. It's not just decontaminating emergency services personnel, it's decontaminating any victims, any casualties. So although that is the health service responsibility, the fire service are very kind and they look after our stuff for us. They also pump it full of water to make our showers work, and they do all the logistics around that for us. So we will liaise very closely with their functional sector commander for decontam in terms of, is it a wet decon, is it a dry decon, where does it need to be, where's the hot zone, the warm zone, the cold zone, what levels of things do we need in those areas, and they'll be the person we talk to about all of that. They'll also have somebody for crew rehabilitation and welfare, making sure that everybody is getting well fed and watered, making sure that if they've been under BA, that they have a sufficient timeout before they're asked to go back under BA. They will also have a functional sector for relief management. So in ambulance world, we let our gold commander, or we let people in the control room, decide what is happening in terms of us being relieved. We'll usually drop a patient off at hospital and, okay, it's the end of your shift, go and drop your ambulance off at station. Somebody else will pick up your ambulance and go to scene from there. You get yourself off home. In the fire and rescue service, if your pump is kind of right next to the scene and it's pumping a load of water in for the people fighting the fire, you can't just say, I'm just going to unplug my hoses and drive back to the station. It's end of a shift now. It doesn't work like that. So relief management is one of the off-site functions, but it is a functional sector under the control of the incident silver. And they'll be looking at how they're going to get the relief. Do they need to call people in early? Do they need mutual aid support? Are they going to be using minibuses? Are they going to borrow appliances to move people? How are they going to get people to and from? It's a lot more complicated for fire because they just simply can't take their vehicles off scene, unlike we can, or unlike the police can. And then also they'll have press liaison. So we have a very similar role. The police have a very similar role. So does fire. You can identify a functional sector commander. They wear a purely red high vis. So it's a yellow high vis for an operational sector. It's a purely red high vis for a functional sector. And then tying in with fire and rescue, who do have their own urban search and rescue function, there is the overall kind of search and rescue network of organizations. So within that, I mean lowland search and rescue, mountain rescue, urban search and rescue dogs, all of those, many organizations, some voluntary, some commercial, some statutory, all fall within the general scheme of land search and rescue, or land SAR, SAR meaning search and rescue. So the top level will be their commanders. So their commanders are silver level. They are the people who will receive the notification. They will turn out themselves, as well as ensuring their turnout process is followed to activate everybody else. You'll then have a search manager. So they are the person who is going to direct resources conducting the search, and they're going to work very, very closely with the search planner. So the search manager is senior to the search planner. The search planner is purely looking at how an area needs to be searched, whereas a search manager is going to take that plan and enact it. So they're going to look at what resources are needed. They're going to decide whether it's safe for them resources to carry out that plan. The planner is almost planning in isolation. They are taking the information on board and thinking about how everything comes together, but the search manager has the overall decision making in terms of that search. They'll be directing operations officers, so bronze staff will be operations officers. They are going to be leading a particular sector. They are going to be looking after a defined area for that search. And they're going to be delivering the orders or the instructions to team leaders. So the team leaders are going to take their team of 2, 3, 4, however many it is, who conduct a search within line of sight, within hearing of each other. And they are going to then report to the operations officer responsible for that sector. And a lot of search and rescue organisations also have chaplains that they'll deploy to the scene. They're the people who will kind of reassure their staff, who will provide that timeout, who will look after the welfare. Search and rescue are very good at making sure that they have somebody in that role attend a lot of their incidents. And that's something I think other services could be better at, is actually having somebody just dedicated to that role of sitting down with staff and talking things through and making sure they're okay at the scene of the incident itself. So let's look now at Her Majesty's Coastguard. So roles and responsibilities of Her Majesty's Coastguard. Give you a hint, it involves water. Throw them in the chat. Okay, I can see a few answers coming in there now. So we've got safety of water assets, rescuing people from the sea, search and rescue by sea, messing about with ropes, casualty recovery from vessels at sea, dealing with incidents on water involving ships and boats, rope rescue, overview of weather and terrain conditions. So absolutely, there's a good few that you've mentioned there. Her Majesty's Coastguard are also responsible for aeronautical rescue. They are also responsible for coordinating any incidents that happen on any offshore installations, including the oil and gas industry. So in terms of an incident, who is involved? So Her Majesty's Coastguard, in one of the Coastguard Operations Centre or the National Maritime Operations Centre, will be a mission coordinator. So the mission coordinator is the gold command for Her Majesty's Coastguard. They are the one who is in overall charge. They are the ones directing what kinds of assets, what support organisations need to be directed to be involved. They will work very closely with the on-scene coordinator, who is Silver. So there will be somebody from the Coastguard turns up as the Coastguard officer in charge. They're referred to internally as the on-scene coordinator. Now, the on-scene coordinator may be land-based alongside the police, fire and ambulance staging area, or they may actually be vessel-based. They may be attending in one of the Coastguard assets or the RNLI assets or another asset that is tasked to the scene, but they're referred to as the on-scene coordinator. Within NMOC, or National Maritime Operations Centre in Fareham, there is also an aircraft coordinator. So the aircraft coordinator works in the ARC, or the ARC is the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Centre, and they are responsible for coordinating all of the airborne assets that are going to get involved in a search and rescue effort at sea, or a search and rescue effort for any offshore installations. So what does Her Majesty's Coastguard actually do? So they will coordinate all offshore search and rescue, or SAR, operations. And unlike on land, they hold what we term primacy. So primacy is the organisation that is in overall charge. So quite often on my events webinars, I refer to the fact that the event organiser holds primacy, or the event medical provider has primacy of casualty care. However, in an incident that would transfer, that primacy is given to the police, or in terms of my human resources and my assets, I would give them to the NHS ambulance service, who would have primacy of the incident as far as the health service response goes. So when anything happens in the territorial waters or up to the agreed international boundaries, Her Majesty's Coastguard holds primacy for that incident. And that's because they are the experts in water. You put the police in water and they just get soggy. So as I've said, they're co-located with the ARC. They will also coordinate the lifeboat response. So they will directly page lifeboat crew. They will task lifeboats and direct lifeboats to attend incidents. However, the operational control of all lifeguard assets and crew rests with the RNLI. So the RNLI will follow its own operational structures, and each vessel will have its own command structure. There will be somebody in charge, the coxswain, who is in charge of that RNLI asset, and that is where the operational control will lie. They will report to an RNLI commander. However, it is HM Coastguard, or the relevant Coastguard Operations Centre, who would direct that lifeboat needs to be tasked to the incident. And that is everything for Her Majesty's Coastguard. As Alan has kind of said, they are basically water-based police power-wise. The police still have criminal investigatory powers to do with anything up to our international line, our territorial waters, and also the UK sector of the North Sea. But in terms of incident, it is the Coast Guard. Ellie, absolutely right. The National Maritime Operations Centre is located at the Coast Guard Operations Centre Fareham, which is also our nautical coordination centre. If you didn't know that, you're probably not aware of what is also located in Swanwick, and that is the National Air Traffic Service. That is just about 3 miles further down the road. So tonight, I'm hoping that we've covered the 3-tier model of incident command. I'm hoping that you feel I've gave enough consideration to the different police roles and their command structure, the fire and rescue roles and command structure, how search and rescue organisations function, and the roles of Her Majesty's Coast Guard. So I'm sure many of you would like your CPD certificate tonight. Please email webinars@promed999.co.uk with your full name. We are going to verify that you've been in this session. So if you do email us from a different email address to how you logged in tonight, make sure you tell us the one you've used on Zoom. Also, if your name that you want on your certificate is different to how it appears on Zoom, please make sure you tell us that. We're going to verify that you've left us a review on one of the review sites. And then digital certificates will be emailed within 3 business days. Alan has pointed out that a lot of the content that we've covered tonight is required for FREC 4 workbooks. He's absolutely right. Innes did allude to that on Monday night when he was talking about FREC Workbook 2 in STC's webinar. This will be on YouTube, so if you don't feel like you've taken sufficient notes, give it a day or two, and we will have the video available on YouTube so you can watch it back and make your notes then. So in order to get your certificate, you will need to leave us a review. The links have been posted in the chat right now by ProMed Admin. They are on Trustpilot, Yell, Google, and Facebook. So if you have been on and left us a review previously, if there's any of those you haven't left us a review on, please pick a different site this week. I know many of you have now left us reviews on all 4, and that's absolutely fantastic. If you've already left us a review on all 4, obviously you don't need to leave us any more reviews. So you are now free to leave. If you want to disappear, you'll still get your certificate. However, it's now an open question and answer session. The best way to do this will be to raise your hand. I'll invite you to speak, and we can have a 2-way conversation about that. That's the best way to do it, because then we've got some dialogue going. Alternatively, post your message in the chat. You can post it privately if you'd rather, and I will read them out and we will answer any questions that you might have. Or you can message somebody else and have them ask it on your behalf. Also, I'm aware that there's been a couple of technical issues. Apparently, I've been quite quiet for some people. There was a little bit of feedback, and I know a couple of people have struggled to get in. So if you have been affected with any technical issues this evening, please do accept my apologies and ProMed's apologies. It is a team effort. We do have 3 admin team logged in this evening. So, you know, we do apologize that you haven't had the full experience tonight. So any questions, anybody? If you've got any questions at all, please ask away. This is your opportunity to learn as much as possible. So whatever the thought is in your head, I'm sure there is somebody else who has a very similar thought or is unsure of something or would like some more information. So ask away. Georgie, yeah, you're very welcome. Nobody got any questions at all. That's a surprise. Alan, very welcome. Nathan, absolutely. The reason we're putting all of this on our website is because A, we want to promote our FREC 4 courses, but B, because actually we know a lot of people out there do struggle with the FREC 4 workbooks. I know when I did my own FREC 4 workbooks a year and a half ago now, I was relying a lot on the knowledge from my degree or my MIMS course, or my paediatric nurse friends, or even my primary school teacher trainees that I saw every week to help me get through. And that's why we promote STC's webinars just as much, because they're really, really useful for the clinical side. So what we do is we are going to be updating the FREC pages on the website very soon, and we will be including direct links to these videos, and we'll kind of be, you know, hinting at what questions they will help you with. Katie, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week as well. If there is anything you want to watch on our YouTube channel, there is quite a lot of different things on there. So if you have enjoyed tonight's, I'm sure you will enjoy some of the other ones that we've done previously. Next week is for those of you working in the private sector. We're going to be looking at working on TV and film production sets. So if you are interested in becoming a film unit medic or a construction medic, working in film and TV productions, come along. We're going to be talking about all the different roles there, what's expected of medics, the COVID protocols, how we're keeping everybody safe, what the APA guidelines say, things about COVID testing, how that's being carried out, what the rationale is behind all of that. On bonfire night, assuming that I'm not operational that night, which given the tier restrictions in my local area, I'm very unlikely to be operational at the moment. So if that goes ahead, that will be on safety considerations for medical providers at events and incidents. 12th of November, we're going to be looking at safety critical communications protocols. So how to have a two-way conversation and actually make sure your messages are received and understood. If it is critical information about a patient or how an incident is being managed or hazards, it's really important that we have a set structure or way to do this. 19th of November is going to be the kind of phases, the time phases of major incidents. Innes briefly looked at that on Monday in SDC's webinars. We're going to go into that in a lot more depth and look at what the activities typical of each organisation would be in each of the time phases. And we're going to look at how the involvement of organisations changes over time as well. Sean, absolutely. A lot of people have heard the titles or they've been at incidents and seen them, but not actually sure, well, how do they work with them or what's their role, what are they actually doing? Looks like a nice title, but what does it mean? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Rob, I really do apologise that you've had a bad experience tonight, but thank you for saying you're going to watch it on YouTube. Ellie, you are very, very welcome. Andrew, you're welcome again. Jenny, absolutely one of our regulars. I'm really pleased that you keep coming back time after time. Thank you very much. I've obviously done a very thorough job tonight because I still can't see any questions. So on that note, I'm just going to remind you all, webinars at promed999.co.uk, full name and email address as you logged into Zoom so we can verify you are here. Name you want on your CPD certificate and we'll get a digital certificate emailed out to you within 3 business days once we've seen you put a review on our website. So we have provided the website free of charge, the webinar free of charge. We also provide our website free of charge, full of useful information about all the courses. But please do leave us at least 1 review. We've got Trustpilot, Yelp, Google and Facebook. So any of those links are in the chat. Kevin, glad to see you want to come back. Pleased to have gave you a good experience this evening. So yeah, please leave reviews. Oops, that references slide shouldn't come up there. It's normally hidden. It will be uploaded to the website, so you can click through. There's some really useful information from the various organizations that I've used when I've been trying to summarize the information for all of you guys. The links for the reviews are in the chat. Also, our YouTube channel link is in the chat. So if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get notified as soon as we upload this video and any future videos. And you'll also comment away on there. So that's everything. I'm going to leave the chat open for another few minutes. I will probably kick you all out at 19:55. So if there are any links you want to click on, you've got about 4 minutes left to do that. Thank you everybody for coming along and giving up an hour of your Thursday evening to join us. And we shall see you next Thursday for working on TV and film production sites. Thank you and goodbye.